Eyes of Wakanda, new series on Disney Plus by Marvel. Off the cuff, let's just talk about it. All right, so Eyes of Wakanda's series that dropped on August 1st, I believe. I just got a chance to watch it, so I just wanted to go ahead and give my quick thoughts on it. I'm glad to probably watch it again just to make sure I catch everything, which is what I usually like to do, but it's just my off the cuff reaction. Eyes of Wakanda is a series of things just through the eyes of Wakanda, so it's not necessarily focusing on Black Panther. And T'Challa for that is more focused on just what is going on in the world of you know Wakanda's other avenues, very particularly their war dogs and what goes on with the war dogs. So we know that the war dogs is a group that of sleeper agents that is put throughout the world to handle certain situations and recover certain things when necessary. They're activated as just kind of a quick response to whatever's going on without having to, I guess, send the entire force of, you know, Dora Milaje or, any other, border guards and all that other kind of stuff have to get involved with anything. So, 4 episodes in this series. You have Into the Lion's Den, Legends and Lies, Lost and Found, and The Last Panther. So, I'll go through each of them one by one fairly quickly, but not too crazy. So the first one is about Noni. All right. Noni is a character who has been tasked. She is a failed Dora Milaje, so to speak, because she was kicked out of the group and she was more or less, she doesn't work well with others. She's better solo, doing her own thing. This takes place, I think, in 1260 BC. There's sea raiders that arrive to take over this particular uh, city, camp, whatever it is, and this mass group, shows up, and they have a leader, which is the lion. So he's got like a golden lion mask, and he's got purple powers, which we know kind of relate to vibranium powers. Something's going on there. So find out that he's there to take over everything, and we find out that it's a rogue Wakandan that has pretty much taken some Wakandan artifacts, vibranium stuff, and has started their own more or less, I don't know, have a group for lack of a better term. I don't know what to call it. Basically, this group and going, basically taking a bunch of people, and forcing them into, I guess, service. Like either gonna get in with where you fit in or you're going to be removed. Simple as that. And they're branded accordingly with the lion symbol. Now, as you go through this, we see that there's he's got like four lieutenants. So you got somebody who's um, basically looks like they're very pale, bunch of tattoos, more or less Viking esque. You got someone who looks to have possibly some I won't say Polynesian or Latino kind of garb culture, big guy. You got more like a someone who is most likely from the Middle East with their particular style of dress, and then someone who seems to be maybe a samurai type, maybe a Ronin. So they're his lieutenants that have been gathered, and it's just the lion who is the leader. So basically, Noni has infiltrated. She's a young woman in the market, and basically, she's trying to find out what's going on. And long story short, she ends up basically she got tasked with this 6 weeks earlier to go infiltrate and find out what's going on and bring back the artifacts that were stolen. That is her entire goal. The leader of the Dora Milaje, Akia, is the one who gave her this mission, so that's what she's doing. So after she has gone through, she finds out that it's Nakati, who is the lion. That's the one who was a former member of the War Dogs, and he trained several people, and everybody that they have sent to come after him has been unsuccessful or missing because he's trained them. So most likely they either joined up with him or they were dispatched one way or the other. Noni is not known to him, and Noni doesn't work well with others, which made her a perfect candidate for being able to go after him. She basically ends up fighting her way free after everybody gets captured, and she ends up taking out all of the lieutenants more or less in a fashion. Some of them took themselves out, which I thought was kind of hilarious. Um, but other than that, she ends up just getting to the lion, and he ends up inviting her in because like, okay, I see you took out all my people. Let's have a conversation. I could use you, and she's like, yeah, no, not gonna happen. And they end up scrapping, and they're going at it pretty good. And in the end, he gets defeated, and instead of doing anything else, he decides like I'm not going back, and just tells her like, once you see the outside world, you see things differently, and that's just something that kind of sticks with her. And then he bang hits a button, blows up everything, and he's done. It's like, okay, so first episode was like you just kind of blew up everything and called it a day. Like I thought you were trying to build an empire. You like he gave up very easily in the end, and just like I'm not going back, and blew the thing up. So all the artifacts were more or less lost to the ocean for the most part. She couldn't get her hands on any of them. She went back to report, and they say that she said I failed. And it's like no, you didn't fail. I want to make you a member of the War Dogs. You did exactly what you're supposed to do, which was stop a threat to Wakanda, and we appreciate that. And that's it. Freaking, that's just kind of where it goes. She's part of the War Dogs now. Now, in episode 2, we actually see Odysseus and the story of Odysseus and everything that's happening in with King Priam. So this is the whole. If you ever heard, the Battle of Troy, the Trojan Horse, all this stuff. This is where this takes place. So you see, we're moving forward in time. So just the different eras of time where Wakandans have had influence in some capacity with whatever's going on, or trying to recover their artifacts. And most of this is recovery missions. They're trying to recover artifacts that have gone missing. So uh, with this, we have Memnon, who is a Wakandan who is under the guise of Memnon and basically befriends Achilles. If you ever heard of Achilles, you've got freaking Achilles tendons. Um, we see that the Myrmidons are led by Achilles, and Memnon has been there for probably about 8 years, befriending Achilles, being part of them, and helping them, get their battle. There's been an ulterior motive the entire time, but again, nobody knows that. While this is going on, we found out that Memnon is actually Bakai is his name, one of the carnivores who's sent to get an artifact. Turns out this artifact is a necklace that's around the neck of Helen of Troy. So when they finally do the entire thing, and again, he wasn't trusted for a while. Like various people in the group did not trust him, but Achilles always vouched for him. Once they got in, immediately he took off to go after what he was after, and Achilles saw him and was like, "What's going on?" And when Achilles finds him, he sees that he has what he was after. And he's letting Helen and Paris are letting them escape. So he's upset by it. So they start to fight, and what ends up happening is Bakai ends up dispatching Achilles by cutting the Achilles tendon and sending his friend to the great beyond, and pays the fare, for the ferryman, always the 2 coins over the eyes, and basically ends up taking the artifact back home. And the director who he turns the artifact into is none other than Noni from the first episode. She is now older, full white hair. She's been doing this for a while. So you see, it's not a huge time jump, but freaking is significant enough that it's like, okay, we see what's going on. Um, and how everything's kind of chaining together. Now, with this being said, this episode was solid. Again, all the art in the entire series has been great. I love it. It reminds me more of the traditional African carvings and figures and stuff like that. How the way that the faces and skulls and stuff are shaped, the elongated necks that are commonly attributed to African culture, especially like with the rings and stuff they do. But so all that stuff is done very well. I do enjoy that. Little things that kind of bother me when you're stabbing knives into stone rock to climb up. I'm like, unless them are some vibranium knives, which they are not, they shouldn't be doing that. But I digress. Little nitpicky things stuff, but overall the series up to this point is solid, just really fast. And again, they've got 20. Each episode is about 30 minutes, so they've got like 20, 5 minutes to tell whatever story they're trying to tell, and it's kind of piecing together. I don't think this one is doing very well so far, but I digress. This is just where I'm at with the second episode. Third episode is a lot better. This is Lost and Found. Turns out we have uh another man, Wakandan, who awakens, and he is basically off to go see the statue. He leaves a young Asian, woman in bed, and he goes off to go check out the statue at this temple, and he's looking at it, and we see that there's a purple tongue in the statue. Obviously, it's a vibranium tongue, so he tries to take it out. He is unable to pull it out. Keep that in mind. He is unable to pull it out, and because he's unable to pull it out, he ends up taking like the entire head of the dragon and walks off. They see him, they chase him. He has a hidden ship in the snowbank. He gets away, flies back to Wakanda, turns in mission success. Everything's great. Now the guy's name is Basha. We find out freaking, and he's got Captain Ebo that he reports to. And while doing all this stuff, turns out that High Counselor Rakim has been, talking to him, and just like everything went off, you do things and you don't really report in. This has been the funnest character out of everybody I've seen so far. Memnon was kind of very straightforward and lazy. Noni was, kind of downtrodden and kind of like, I don't really care. I'll do what I need to do for Wakanda, but I got to work by myself. You know, Basha was, more fun, lighthearted, and just kind of, hanging out, trying to have fun, and we're trying to make things work and always kind of improvising and stuff. Well, we end up having a problem where Iron Fist is now in Wakanda. Iron Fist apparently snuck in to the ship as he was taking off and rode it back to Wakanda and proceeded to escape because Iron Fist is now looking for the dragon's head, looking for the artifact. Throughout the process of this, you see Iron Fist take out several different, Wakandan agents in the process, eventually besting Captain Ebo and coming up against Basha at one point. We eventually find out that the young woman who was in the bed with him earlier is the Iron Fist, and she's been watching it since the beginning. So her name is Jirani, and she is not playing no game. She's like, that statue is important to us. I'm taking it back. He's like, this is my mission, was to get this. And it's like, my mission is to get it back. So we're at an impasse. So they end up going at it. Some really cool fight scenes, great stuff. You can see the tension between the characters of. I felt like Iron Fist was pulling those punches, and Basha was legit, doing the same. But I don't think he's really throwing him in to begin with. He was just trying to diffuse her, but she was not to be stopped. So we see that their relationship, kind of starts to take front and center in terms of, their conflicts for fighting each other. Eventually, it gets down, and they're joking back and forth basically about who seduced who, to get what they were after, and she tells him that if you would have just came clean and told me what you were after, I would have helped you. And this is where I told you he was trying to pull the tongue out and he couldn't. She literally went gently and pulled it out and handed it to him. And she's taking back the dragon head. Simple as that. Now, through all this, Ebo is trying to figure out what's going on. He's trying to excuses. He's working with Basha, so trying to figure it out. Basha has convinced him not to go to the High Counselor because High Counselor is trying to pretty much lock everything down and everybody's in trouble. So Basha's trying to save his own butt as well as Ebo. So in the process of this, basically they end up faking that it was a training exercise and that Captain Ebo was the Iron Fist, more or less. Well, not Iron, but just was wearing the mask to test the readiness capabilities of everybody. And it's like we got serious ways that we need to improve and all this stuff. So Captain Ebo ends up getting promoted to a field agent, who he's very happy about, thanks to Basha kind of laying it out on the line for him. Nobody knows about Iron Fist, so Jiran is able to basically get snuck out by Ebo to get back home, and that may or may not be the end of their relationship. They don't really comment on that, so it's like, all right, cool. Like that story was better to me than all the other ones. I like that one better. It was more fun, but again, this is just through the eyes of Wakanda. Like we don't get to finish the story. We're just getting pieces of the story that we see throughout. So that's that one. And the last episode is actually takes place in Ethiopia to start, which the city of Ottawa in 1896. And this is very important because this was the Italo-Ethiopian War. So they're using events throughout history. These are actual events that occurred throughout history when they actually mention the events. So the Trojan horse that happened. So this Italo-Ethiopian War is where Italians were trying to spread their influence and stuff. And I think they came with like 11,000 soldiers to kind of take over Ethiopia, after trying to spread their influence, I think, near the Horn of Africa. And they came in, and this conflict was actually ended on March 1st, 1896, with the Ethiopians winning, and they end up turning the weapons that I think the Italians brought with them on them at some point in time to fight back. So great bit of history. I love that. Definitely look that up if you're curious about it. But we have Prince Tafari and Kuda. So Prince Tafari is the third son of the Wakanda royal family at this time, and Kuda is a senior war dog field agent who's been doing this for a while, and it more or less is training Tafari. During the process of this, we actually see that they're going to recover an artifact, which is an axe. It looks vaguely similar to the axe that we saw that Ulysses Claw and Killmonger went to go retrieve during Black Panther. So keep that in mind. With that being said, we end up going to see them go in, basically retrieve it, and start to head back when they get stopped by some figure in a black outfit. Turns out they're confronted by none other than a panther. This turns out to be the queen of the Wakandans, but from a different timeline. This is where I got lost because I'm like, we're doing more time stuff, and I'm like, I'm honestly, I'm over the time jumping stuff. Time jumping in terms of let's look at different stories in different time periods. Cool, absolutely fine. But this one, there is facing a infestation in the future called the Horde. Wakandans, and it don't worry, it makes sense with the story, so don't get me wrong. I'm not mad at it in terms of that. I'm just over the jumping through time. But what ends up happening is this horde came in, and the horde pretty much started taking over the world. Wakandan could have stood with everybody and helped, but Wakandan chose not to and stay in their own bubble and stuff. Eventually, the horde came to reach them, but there's no one else to help them. They're just in there and having to deal with it. So if the Wakandans would have brought their technology and their forces to help the rest of the world when the horde first came, they may have been able to defeat it and deal with it. But because they did not and they weren't open up to the rest of the world, their world fell into ruin. So she basically was saying that she's got to put that axe back, and if she doesn't, because it has to be found, and that because that's what's going to trigger the process of starting, relations to build outside of Wakanda. And so if it doesn't happen, the world is doomed. It's like, how do we know that we can believe you? Who are you? And like, there's another member of the royal family, freaking, the current queen at this time is pregnant with a fourth child, and she manages to get that out before she's sucked back into the time vortex because the jump wasn't holding. Now, of course, Kuda is skeptical, but Tafari confirms, like, yes, nobody else knew that, she is pregnant with a fourth child. It is a girl, I believe they said. Could be mistaken, but it is a fourth child. And, Kuda now believes Tafari and the queen that, okay, yeah, maybe this is a thing. So okay, we do need to put it back. So basically they go back into the conflict, into the war, to go put this back. Kuda gets injured in the process, but Tafari ends up stepping up to get stuff put back. And it's more or less his journey and him becoming a man and actually trying to submit his legacy in history. So he's working on that. So taking charge and being accountable for things is part of this process. He manages to get the axe put back, and we see that he ends up taking credit for um, not recovering the artifact and that it was destroyed because of what happened with the war. And they just kind of write it off that it has been destroyed. And he takes all the blame so that Kuda's not getting in trouble because Kuda has never come back from mission without having whatever he was going after. So he steps up through that. And we actually see the queen in several scenes fighting with the horde. Several of the Dora Milaje is left, which is like probably 10 of them, and they're slowly getting dispatched one by one. And right when the queen is defending the gate by herself the last time, screaming Wakanda forever like 3 times. So at that, we see that Tafari manages to put the axe back. So that's kind of where all that plays out, and we actually end up seeing a scene animated from Black Panther. We see the Killmonger scene where they're finding the axe. So that was the axe that ties all this stuff together, which, as you saw in the Black Panther movie, got T'Challa to start to open up relations between the rest of the world and make the Wakandan outreach centers and all the stuff to help do things. So I'll go on a little bit of a rant for a second. If all we had all these Wakanda outreach programs, and then we had Ironheart, and Ironheart was kind of left to her own devices after being more or less kicked out of Wakanda without the suit that she built because it was made of vibranium, and she couldn't take it with her, and she was kind of stuck on her own. Where are all these outreach programs and centers? I'm just saying they could have, hooked the girl up, helped her out. Anyway, that's a small rant for that. Overall, the series was it's solid. I think it could have been better. Again, it's my opinion. Take it as you will. Animation was great. The fight scenes were great. It looked clean. It really did. It looked clean. Tying it into the actual Black Panther storyline was great because it fits all that stuff within the MCU timeline very closely. Like this is part of the MCU, and this is things that happen to lead to those particular events. Cool. Could we get more stories in the future? We could. They could definitely do a season two. Would I watch a season two? Yes, I would absolutely watch it. If Marvel's making it, I will watch it, but I will critique it as I see fit. And um, again, I think episodes three was the best, was the strongest out of all of them. Episode four was just kind of, I don't really like the time jumping thing, because if the horde came, then I would still expect the horde to come at some point in time. So here's the thing: is that going to tie together? Because the horde came and started messing with the world. So are we going to have the horde show up in the MCU at some point in time? And because T'Challa has established relations with the Avengers and the rest of the world, like, are we going to see them eventually fight the horde in live action, or are we going to have an animated version of it that takes place during whatever part of the timeline that is? Because we don't have that exact timeline. As far as we know what timeline it is, but we don't know where it takes place, how far in the future it takes place. So those are my questions. I'm kind of curious about what's going on there. If you got questions, by all means, leave them in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that freaking lovely red subscribe button. We'd love to hear from you, and talk about all of this stuff. Like, again, I don't know where it's going to go or what's going to happen, but it can tie more and more things together. So Eyes of Wakanda, if we have a season two, um, they can definitely do more. I think that, again, maybe extending the episodes a little bit so you can slow down the pacing and get a little bit more, you know, cool. Maybe 45 minutes. So I wouldn't mind a 45-minute. So doing the 30 minutes and stuff, I always feel like it's a bit short if you don't have, I feel like it's a bit short when you're jumping stories. Like, is you're telling, it's not a continuous story. Like, if you watch an animated series, it's still more or less a continuous story with characters, things that have happened throughout to your story. You can have small instances of stuff, but more of the core things are still the same. This is a constant jump, so nothing is necessarily the same, but it all relates, if that makes sense. So that's all I got for this one. I'm gonna stop talking. I'll catch you guys in the next one later.